Top 10 Worst Crimes. Genocide. The purposeful killing of a certain ethnic group because of stereotypes is ridiculous, cruel, and by far one of the most stupid things humans have done. Wars are fought, but at least both sides are given the chance to fight. In genocide, people targeted don't stand a chance. All because of stereotypes and prejudices people hold. Undoubtedly the worst. Genocide is the mass killing of a certain group of people, for example, ethnic group, religious group, etc. Take the Holocaust, for example, the mass killing of Jews perpetrated by the Nazi Party from 1941 to 1945. The Holocaust is an example of how evil genocide is. There are many other examples, such as the Rwandan genocide and the Armenian genocide, but you get my point. It's murder, but to a lot of people. They probably had families to go to and now they are killed. If murder is the worst, I believe that thousands of murders are even worse. How is animal cruelty above this? Killing humans because you are ignorant of their culture is the worst crime you can commit. Also, how is racism above this? I'd rather people call me the N-word and be discriminated against than people kill everyone of my ethnicity just because. Murder. I doubt anyone supports it, and it's horrible. The people who murder I'm sure don't want to die the same death. Why do it to someone else? It's horrible. Killing overall should be very high on this list and is. I think murder deserves number 1 because there are many slow ways of doing it, as well as the fact that it is one of the most brutal signs of hatred or revenge. Murder is never excusable and is one of the worst crimes in the world. Other than torture, I think murder is number 1 on the list of worst crimes. I sometimes worry it will happen to me. It sucks how people's lives end before they can truly begin, all because of some horrible person. While it's not always their fault due to insanity or illnesses, still, this is a very big problem. I hope the police know what they're doing. The worst thing about murder is that you don't necessarily know when it's going to happen to you and why it might/will happen. Torture. Torture can have a scale on how much pain is put on the person. But I'd think that it is very bad the fact that some people would beg to be killed instead of tortured. Making someone want to suicide but not letting them is far worse than murder. This is a fate worse than death, especially if the tormentor knows what he's doing. Worse than murder. At least let them die peacefully. Rape. Should be top. I know from experience how bad this is. It's like torture for the rest of your life. The trauma is worse than torture, I know, I have had to deal with both of them. If you do this to many people, it's worse than genocide, only one person, and it should be 2. Every single person who has done this crime deserves to be tortured for the rest of eternity. Rapists shouldn't be sentenced to death or be in prison. They should have their arms and privates chopped off and not be allowed to get replacement limbs. Then, set them free. The same thing should happen with sex traffickers and child molesters. Did you know that in jail, other prisoners would kill a rapist? Just about every type of criminal on this list would attack or kill a rapist in prison because of how atrocious this crime is. Rape is a slower sort of murder. It traumatizes you most of the time to a point that you no longer feel secure anywhere. What monsters have people turned into to ever commit such a disgusting thing? Terrorism. Killing people and destroying property for selfish reasons and demonstrating power over others are one of the most stupid ways to show off. Just a reminder that the United States does state-sponsored terrorism on a regular basis. It also doesn't need to happen on an organizational level. One can be complicit in terrorism by whether purposefully or unpurposefully encouraging others to commit such acts. This is worse than animal cruelty by far. Have you seen 9/11? That was terrorism and it affected our country in a horrible way. I'm not saying animal cruelty is bad, it's just not as bad as terrorism. Terrorism poses no threat to the planet compared to what the corporate cronies have done. Some corporations have done much more harm to the planet than ISIS has done. Animal cruelty. Animal cruelty is the worst. In fact, a bestiality is a form of this harsh cruelty. I've grown up surrounded by people cutting down trees, where birds and their homes are. Let's make sure our children in the future don't have to experience this. Growing up, even though at this point in time I'm only 10 years old, I've loved animals. It pains me to know what people are doing to the environments surrounding us. It hurts me so much that it has been a lifelong dream of mine to end animal cruelty. Caden Green. There is nothing, and I repeat nothing worse than animal cruelty. Animals are treated as slaves and food, and that's it. I once asked a child what they think animals are. They answered pets and food. Is that seriously what we have trained our kids to think? That they are nothing more than pets and food? That disgusts me. Humans are dying, and that is very sad, but has anyone noticed that animals have to deal with poachers, being eaten, being exploited, being separated from friends and family, and being caged up all their lives? Do most humans have to deal with that? Some, but not all. For all of you that think humans are more important than animals, you are only saying that because you are human. If you were a sheep, you'd care more about sheep. If you were a tiger, you'd care more about tigers. What you fail to see is that these animals also have feelings. Humans are not even near extinction, while some animals are the last of their kind. People make such a big fuss over someone being slavery. I would rather die in war than be a slave my whole life. It's torture, complete cruelty. Work all day for no pay and get whipped, that's worse than death. Slavery is terrible. The worst part about it is there is almost no hope to get out of it. All of these crimes together equal slavery. Nobody deserves slavery. It's just unfair. Human trafficking. In reality, if people only knew how horrendous the treatment of their victims is, this should be number one on the crime list. It's the act of putting someone in slavery. Willing slavery is an entirely different concept. Really horrifying not knowing what your faith is. It's a form of slavery. Child abuse. Children are young, so if they die, they won't have a long life. They can get scared a lot. It's sad. I think it should be on top. That is one of the reasons that some children have traumas and commit suicide. Why abuse your child for being alive if it was your fault for having them? Think of the children. Seriously, kids are defenseless, and it's unfair. Molestation. I know a YouTube user whose dad did it to his half-sister for 9 years for being a loser stepchild, and thankfully, he is spending the rest of his life in prison. The Lord Jesus said those who the little would be better off throwing themselves in a lake of fire than to deal with me. It's terrible. Need I say more?